Awesome. Thank you so much to Brian Fitzgerald. I'm sure everyone is clapping right now. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our live virtual trademark event with the Society of Professional Women. Even before the age of social distancing, psychologists were studying leaders who come from a place of compassion and empathy in and out of the workplace, leading to successfully driving more engagement, happiness, and a positive work environment. So, who couldn't use more compassionate leadership during challenging times like these? We're thrilled to have Chief Inspiration Officer of the Human Leadership Institute, Jen Kronberger, to today's program for her longtime focus on this significant work. As always, I ask that you be patient with me throughout the technology use of today. I'm Nicole Stevenson. I'm the director of the SPW program at the Mainline Chamber of Commerce. SPW would not be possible without the continued support of our members and most of our sponsors. Please allow me to share my screen and thank all the sponsors that continue to support our mission to accelerate the advancement and expand the influence of women leaders of all professions and generations, strengthen our business community, and support the region's nonprofit organizations.
I'm Jen Ryan, so I am Jen from Jen and Bill in the Morning here on Philly's B101.1, and B101 is so happy to be a sponsor of the Society for Professional Women, and we want to welcome you to today's event, which could not happen without our sponsors. So I'd like to take a minute right now to thank them. The champion sponsor, Wells Fargo. Communication sponsor, Comcast Business. Employee benefit sponsor, My Benefit Advisor. Women's health sponsor, Mainline Health. Diamond sponsor, B101.1. Women Helping Women sponsor, Fidelity Investments. And education sponsor, St. Joseph's University.
And now our platinum sponsor, Stradley, Ronan, Stevens, and Young.
Hi guys, it's Phil Tafro from the Jen and Bill Show on Philly's B101.1. Thank you so much for listening to us every morning. And right now, I'd like to thank the gold sponsors of today's program.
1847 Financial, Closets by Design, Enterprise Holdings and Fleet Management, First Trust Bank, Mainline Today, Montgomery County Community College, MRS Audiovisual, TechWise Group, UGI Amerigas, United Healthcare, Univest Corporation, and Vertex. Silver sponsors, Aqua, an essential utilities company, CSL Behring, Ernst & Young, The Giant Company, Pico, Pictures by Todd Photography, Seasons 52, Suburban Square, Villanova College of Professional Studies, and WSFS Bank.
Okay, wonderful. So these companies demonstrate a commitment to greater gender equity and diversity. Among them, we'd also like to thank our event sponsor of today's program, Delaware Valley Friends School. Please support all of these businesses whenever possible. The Mainline Chamber of Commerce staff is prepared to continue working hard to bring people together for valuable connections and connections on multiple fronts. Please visit our website at mlcc.org and sign up for our emails to stay informed. Our next SPW event will be on Thursday, April 22nd, with best-selling author and CEO of The Trust Edge, David Horsager. You can register now at spwmainline.com. You can continue to help us serve you by communicating with our staff, taking our surveys, and by interacting with us and others on social media using our hashtags MLCC and SPWMainline. Thank you again for your support. So before introducing today's esteemed guests, I'd like to review a few housekeeping items. There is a chat function and a Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. Please remember when you submit your questions to do so in the Q&A function so that it doesn't get lost in the chat function when it becomes time to get to them. Jen will answer questions for about 10 minutes after the event today. In order to continue our efforts to connect individuals with one another through networking, during today's program, we will be sending the attendee list from today to all attendees and sponsors with information how you can identify up to 2 individuals that you may want to have a 15-minute conversation with. You will also receive a copy of the recording, which will be available on spwmainline.com, and we will be hosting breakout sessions today after the Q&A. There will be a moderator in each room to direct the conversation, so thank you to our volunteers for helping with that today. Each attendee will have the opportunity to introduce themselves and their company. The moderator will then lead the conversation with a proposed question from today's program to engage the dialogue between the group of individuals. The link for the meeting rooms will be provided in the chat function now and at the end of the formal program today. Please save this link to the meeting room now so that you can access it easily, and we will begin meeting all together before splitting everyone up into groups. Please be patient while we wait for everyone to make a transition to join us. I'd like to welcome and thank NBC 10 anchor Erin Coleman for being our interview host today. We are appreciative of your time and skills to produce a high quality event, and welcome and thank you to our speaker, Jen Kronberger, for making the time for SBW and bringing this important mission of making business human again to our audience. I look forward to both of your conversation. Giving back to the nonprofit community is a big part of the SBW mission. In just over a decade, SBW has awarded over $80,000 to local nonprofits. We are thrilled that in addition to being our communication sponsor, Comcast Business has joined us as our community giving sponsor as well, and will give a $1,000 check to each nonprofit at our trademark events this year. Ryan's Case for Smiles is the featured nonprofit today. Thank you to Executive Director Missy Lusk for being with us to share more about their important work. At SBW, we are proud to partner with so many companies that live our mission and vision. Comcast Business is one of those partners. It's my pleasure to introduce SMB Sales Director Barry Levin to today's program.
Thank you, Nicole, and hello, everyone. My name is Barry Levin, and I'm the Regional Sales Director for Comcast Business here in the Greater Philadelphia region. Comcast Business is proud to be the official communication sponsor for SBW in 2021, and we are extremely grateful for this opportunity and to be able to speak to you all here today. At Comcast Business, we provide advanced communication solutions that allow our business customers to stay connected to the internet, to data centers, to customers, to suppliers, and to a remote workforce. Obviously, in today's environment, connectivity is as important as ever, and that is where you can count on us. If any of you have any business needs, please don't hesitate to reach out, as we have had great success over the years assisting SBW members with what they need to help their business achieve and succeed. Throughout these challenging past 12 months, Comcast Business's mission has remained. We not only want to help businesses bounce back, but bounce forward. Through our partnership with SBW, we have been able to effectively connect with the local community through their events, networking, and overall engagement. That is why we are thrilled to take the relationship to even greater heights in 2021 and give yet another more than deserving nonprofit organization some recognition here today. Today's featured nonprofit today is Ryan's Case for Smiles. Ryan's Case for Smiles started with a simple goal: to create and distribute whimsical pillowcases that give children an emotional boost and remind them that they are not defined by their illness. Today, their programs have expanded to include the children's entire family so they can better navigate and cope with a very difficult experience and avoid long-term emotional trauma. Ryan's Case for Smiles is one of the few volunteer organizations solely dedicated to helping kids feel better to heal better. While other great organizations focus on research and finding a cure, they work to improve the quality of life of children and their families as they undergo treatment. At Comcast Business, it is our shared commitment to support and give back to local organizations like yours that are making a difference. In appreciation for all that you do, it is my honor to present you with this $1,000 check from Comcast Business. Please welcome Executive Director Missy Lusk to share more about their amazing work.
Wow, thank you very much, Barry, for the introduction. And obviously, thank you to Comcast for that generous donation. It will help us as we carry out our programs for children and families. I also want to thank the Mainline Chamber of Commerce and the Mainline Society of Professional Women for choosing Case for Smiles for today's featured nonprofit. As you said, we started off based on a pillowcase just like this. Cindy Kerr, our founder, she had 3 children, the youngest of which, Ryan, was diagnosed with osteosarcoma. And while he was in the hospital being treated, she kind of felt helpless. She didn't know how to help him and what could she do to cheer him up. And she created a whimsical pillowcase. It was a surprise to him what it was going to be. And then she found that it not only brightened the room, so the drabby white hospital beds now had this nice cheery pillowcase on it, But then also it helped build rapport with the staff that came in. So they came into his room and then instantly bonded, like, oh my gosh, I really love that hamburger theme or that football theme or whatever it was. And each time he came to the hospital, his mom would create a brand new pillowcase for him, and it would be a complete surprise to Ryan and the entire staff. So that, happened as he was in the hospital. But then what happened is he relapsed, sadly. And Cindy and her daughter went home and created pillowcases for everybody on the floor at CHOP. That's where he was treated. And that labor of love really did not mean to launch us into an organization, but through a lot of hard work and a little bit of luck, I like to say, she was Martha Stewart's first Dreamer into Doer, which did launch us nationally. So today our programs have expanded from children with cancer receiving pillowcases to programs really making sure that we're helping the emotional impact of families. So we have Case for Smiles, which is our main website. We have Coping Space, which are web-based resources to help mitigate the emotional effects like the PTSD that could happen if left untreated. And then we have lots of programs that really focus on siblings. One way that we partner with our community is through corporate team building events and creating these wonderful boxes that go to the siblings who have a brother or sister in those partner hospitals. And each item in that box talks about a positive coping technique. So we have lots of ways for you to get involved and would love for you to get involved. Thank you again for having us. And please visit caseforsmiles.org if you'd like to learn a little bit more.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Becky Miller, and I'm a senior account manager with Enterprise Fleet Management. At Enterprise, we work with companies in the communities we serve, specifically to help manage and control expenses associated with the fleet of vehicles. I think we can all agree this has been a year of change like no other, when so many of the organizations we partner with have been working remote and embracing different business strategies and technologies. We've served each client to our fullest capacity this past year by helping to reduce and repurpose those fleets so that businesses can continue to thrive. Enterprise is no different, as the majority of us have been working remote and managing our families or our home lives, some of us becoming teachers on the side. What hasn't changed, though, is our relationship with the Mainline Chamber of Commerce and SPW, which has always been of such value and great importance. Even more so over the past year with their continuation to host these virtual events. Ongoing development and impactful speakers has been paramount to all of us at Enterprise. So we'd like to thank the Mainline and SPW for keeping these programs going. They've really given us something to look forward to each month. With that said, please join me in welcoming our incredible speaker for today's program. Jen Kronberger is a widely sought after 4-time TEDx speaker and compassionate leadership culture change consultant, and is the founder and chief inspiration officer of J. Lynn Consulting Group and the Human Leadership Institute. Most of her last 20 years have been spent instilling confidence and building deeper connections and awareness. Her master's degree is in sports and performance psychology, and some of Jen's clients have included professional athletes, as well as organizations that include Nike, Procter & Gamble, Lockheed Martin, the U.S. Department of Defense, the National Institute of Health, and the USDA. Jen is a Dare to Lead instructor. She holds certifications from the Harvard Business School in Sustainable Business Strategy, Diversity and Inclusion from Cornell University, and the Science of Wellbeing from Yale University. Jen is an invite-only member of the Forbes Coaches Council for the 2020-2021, and is currently a doctoral candidate in the field of leadership. She has a podcast called The Possibility Project and writes monthly columns for a variety of publications, including Forbes. She published her first book in 2012 called These 5 Words Are Mine. Jen was named Female Business Leader of the Year in 2009 and Best of 2015 to 2019, the #1 motivational speaker in the Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. regions. And most recently, Mainline Today magazine hailed Jen as one of its 2020 Power Women, listing her as a name you should know, and highlighted her longtime focus on compassion and empathy, especially significant now in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Please welcome Jen to have a conversation with us.
Wow, thank you so much for the introduction and for the welcoming, having me here. Thank you, Becky, and thank you, Nicole, for everything that you've done consistently over these last year, really, to keep us together. It's an honor for me to be with you all today, and I hope we're gonna have a little bit of fun. So I'm gonna start just a couple minutes and share a couple little stories with you about my background and about what it's been like on this journey so far. So when I was 7, I wanted to be the next Barbara Walters. Can you see it? Please say no, I'm not that old, right? And so I'm not Barbara Walters, as it were. But I did graduate from the University of Delaware with a degree in English and a concentration in journalism. So I guess I did something in that realm. Also, when I was 7, I wrote my first poem. It was called The Ending of a Dream, and it went like this. When I was young, I had a dream of what I thought I'd do. I'd climb a rope to the tippy top and make that dream come true. But the sky must be the limit, and even that might be a little too confining for all I'd hoped I'd see. Well, I guess you wonder if I'm not a little sad. Well, it's not so bad for dreams to end because I've learned something new. The ending of a dream is when that dream comes true. So through the years, I'd tell myself whenever things go wrong that there is still tomorrow. And I'd tell myself, dream on. And on the bottom of that piece of paper, handwritten, scribbled on that manila paper that you'd fold, it said, Happy Father's Day, Dad. I love you, Jenny. June 15th, 1980. Now, I don't know which was more alarming to me over time, that the 7-year-old in me wrote the words when I was young, or that I used confining in a sentence, who knows? But as we're celebrating this International Women's Day during this week and highlighting Women's History Month, I really like to take inventory of where I came from and where I'm going. Thanking all of those strong, brave, and bold women who came before me, who've insisted on those dreams, whatever they may be, coming true. So I also started playing Little League Baseball when I was 7. It seemed to be the monumental year of my childhood, I guess, right? The interesting part of the story was the fact that I was the only girl on my team. And I was one of the very first girls to play Little League Baseball in my town. Talk about figuring out belonging at an early age. For my tenure in the league, probably about, 2nd to 5th grade, I was one of the better players on my team. And I'd make the all-star team every year. And if you know anything about baseball, you often put your power hitter in the number 4 position called the cleanup hitter, right? So I wrote a paper in freshman English class in college that was called Cleanup is a Woman's Job. To which my very liberal women's rights professor grabbed me and was like, what are you doing? What is this? But I got it back with a laugh and an A and a big thank you. In my 2nd year of Little League, I decided that I wanted to be the catcher. And my dad, who was also my coach at the time, made me first put on the chest protector and the shin guards and the mask just to make sure I was actually really wanting to do it in all that gear. And of course I said yes. And I became the team's number 1 catcher. And the boys were typically not really sure what to do when they were rounding third for home. Should we slide into her? Do we run around her? What do we do? I think back and I laugh at the fear I often saw in their eyes as they ran towards me. This one Saturday morning, we were playing one of the best teams in the league at Sunnyside Park. And I went behind home plate to warm up the pitcher, and the umpire walked over for ground rules. And he was new and young. I'd never seen him before. He pulled out the rule book and looked at me. And then he looked back at the rule book and he looked back at me and he said, okay, I have to ask this. It says here in the rule book that all catchers must wear a protective cup. So I have to ask, are you wearing a cup? You can imagine my look of confusion, right? I looked at him, and before he asked again, I got up from my crouch. I ran into the dugout, frantically rummaging through the equipment bag for anything that might resemble a cup. I found this thing. I didn't know what it was. Figured that must be that. So shoved it in my pants before my dad could even get a word out. And as I started to run back behind home plate, I think he realized what was happening. He yelled at me and he said, hey, you don't have to do this. I can find someone else to catch. I looked at him and I said, Dad, I'm the catcher. Let's play ball. And with that, on went the game, right? And I realize now, looking back at that someone out there who didn't even know me needed to rewrite a rule that wasn't even meant for me. And I see leadership much in this same way. What kinds of things are acting as barriers instead of benefits in their original intention? And how can we move forward from this place of grief and uncertainty into a more brave and compassionate space? I use the acronym BRAVE: belonging, resilience, authenticity, vulnerability, and empathy to explain exactly what I think we need now more than ever in order to move forward in the best way possible. There's so much to consider and so much we can do to help bring back that human element in the workplace, which I think we've been needing pre-COVID anyway. I'm hopeful for a spring that will truly be a rebirth and a reconnection with so much we've been without this year. I'm hopeful for a new sense of humanity in the workplace where people actually feel like they belong. And I'm excited to do the work. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Nicole.
Thank you so much, Jen. That was awesome. Now I found another thing we have in common because I was a catcher for like 9 years. And I played softball. So that's awesome. We have a lot in common. So that's awesome. Anyway, so excited. Erin Coleman is an Emmy award-winning journalist who currently can be seen weekday mornings anchoring NBC 10 News Today from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. Born in Philadelphia and raised in Voorhees, New Jersey, Erin is passionate about telling stories and connecting with viewers. She has worked in television for 17 years and has received multiple awards during her career, including 2 Emmy Awards and the prestigious Edward R. Murrow Award. Erin is a member of the Junior League of Philadelphia and the National Association of Black Journalists. A mother at 2, she spends most of her time off air with her young son, daughter, and her husband. Please welcome Erin to join us and host our conversation today.
Thank you so much, Jen. You sucked me in with those stories. So I'm excited to talk more with you about brave leadership. And I'm excited about, this conversation that I know is going to be really impactful today. So thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited about it. All right, so Jen, you've studied leadership for a long time and really compassionate leadership at that. Pre-pandemic, before we started experiencing the lockdowns and work from home and intentionally, isolating ourselves, and you've talked about this epidemic of loneliness. Yeah. Talk a little bit about, when you hear epidemic of loneliness, right, it kind of gets your attention. And how has the pandemic placed more importance, I guess, on this idea of connection and compassion when we think about loneliness?
So tell me if you agree with this statement. We are the most technologically connected society ever, and yet we stand in the midst of being the most disconnected at the same time, right? This is where we were pre-COVID, okay? And, the fact that we were told this whole past year to social distance and stay apart, obviously that's become much worse. So the stats on loneliness have been pretty grim. We've been living in this space of disconnect for a long time. And we've been needing, I think, how to revisit how we show up and, not just in the workplace, but everywhere. The last TEDx talk I did, which was November of 2019, right? Just before COVID. It was all about this. I talked about how compassion and community and connection will change the world. Now it's even more critical. There's a lot of conversation right now around mental health and around grief and how if we don't get on top of it now, we will actually see that increase in the next 6 to 10 months as we begin to, come back together. And if we don't allow people to grieve what they've lost this past year, it only gets worse, right? And we all know out of mishandled grief comes increased anxiety and depression. But I think we have a chance in the workplace to get control of it if we do it right.
What are the risks of loneliness? And I mean prolonged loneliness. If you're not dealing with it, how bad is it? Is there some sort of way to quantify it, what it does to you, maybe to your health?
Yeah, there's a lot of studies out there, but a couple that popped out for me when I was studying loneliness back in 2019, the epidemic of loneliness was being equated to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It was equated to, looking at loneliness now as almost being worse for your health than obesity. There were stats about just because you're married doesn't mean that you're not lonely. Over 50% of those who were asked in this research reported being lonely. It's not about having someone next to you, right? It's about what's going on inside. And the biggest piece, and the age group that had gone up substantially, and I think probably even more now, was the 16 to 24-year-olds. And, that's something we need to talk about. This is something that will continue to grow, and we're seeing it in the workplace. We're seeing, more call outs. We're seeing, more, changing jobs and feeling like you don't fit in somewhere. So you go somewhere else hoping that you're going to find it. And so much of it is what's going on inside.
Yeah, people watching the clock, like not wanting to be there. All right, I got 5 hours left. Okay, I got 3 hours left, not really being engaged. So can you give us an idea of how this idea of cultures of belonging is showing up in your work?
Yeah, for sure. So my team and I, we've been working with some long-term clients that are really focused right now on culture change and on creating brave and compassionate leaders. And so the culture of belonging, I want people to really hear this clearly. It's not a goal, it's a feeling. And at the end of the day, it's always going to be about how we want to feel, right? So think about every single thing we do, every goal we set, everything we want to accomplish is always about how we want to feel. We don't just lose weight for something to do, right? That's weird. We would lose weight because we want to feel healthy, we want to feel confident, all of those things. We don't go and get a new job to make more money just to for what? Just to do it? No, it's about the safety and the security and all the different feelings that those things come with. If you look at, and if you remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the very center rung in that was love and belonging. So this is a basic human need. It's not, someone whining in the workplace because they want to whine. This is real life stuff. So for example, there's a client of mine I'm working with right now. They really wanted to make more of a focus on the D&I process and really, making progress in that space in the workplace. When we began our work together, I kind of explained it this way, and this is a conglomeration of a lot of different ways I've heard this. So I kind of put it together. This is what I told them. I said, diversity is being invited into the room. Equity is having the same level of access to the room as everyone else. Inclusion is having a seat at the table, and belonging is actually having a voice that is heard and listened to and valued by others who sit at that very table with you. They got it. They were like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And so in order for D&I initiatives to actually take root, the soil has to be fertile, right? We can't just, you can't grow a tree on concrete. And I think a lot of companies and organizations are doing that. They're saying we need to talk about this, but they're not taking care of the culture first. They're not creating this space for it to actually grow and be sustainable. And that's what creating these cultures of belonging, really going in at the core level, is doing.
So how do you help a company or an organization see the importance of this if they are, bottom line, move the ball, what are the results, show me the charts, and they see this as more of a soft skill, if you will?
Yep. I love that question because I love, for so long we've called these things soft skills, the communication styles and leadership and, all of that. What I'm saying to people now is leading with compassion and empathy. It's the only way now, right? People, as I said, people used to call them soft skills. I like to propose a new wording around it. They're no longer soft skills, they're essential skills. And there's a ton of data that highlights the importance of this work. So if you go to Forbes or Gallup or Harvard Business Review, I remember looking at, again, pre-COVID, December, I think it was of 2019 in the Harvard Business Review. These were some of the things that stood out to me. High belonging was linked to a 56% increase in job performance, a 52% drop in turnover risk, and a 75% reduction in sick days. And this was the kicker right here. For a 10,000 person company, this would result in savings of more than $52 million a year.
Wow.
So for those companies out there who are saying results, we have to backtrack this a little bit and say, but at what cost, right? Because really, these are results. If you take care of your people, the rest kind of takes care of itself.
Do you feel like there are different social expectations for men versus women as leaders that make it more challenging to be compassionate? Is there a gender difference when we're talking about this?
Yeah, so to answer the question easily, yes, I think so. But again, these are societal norms and gender expectations. And if you research this a little bit, according to the APA, the stereotypes are that, you know, women have more of a cooperative, compassionate, and community-based approach, right? Men are more command and control. But these are just expectations that we've been handed. And this is part of the conversation. We need to be changing those stereotypes. So just a quick little example of that. I was speaking in a little town in upstate New York called Owego. And if you know where that is, congratulations, because it is this tiny little place on the map in the middle of nowhere. And it's the largest tire manufacturer in the state of New York. So the owner called me, he said, hey, I'd like to have you come speak to our salespeople. And there's going to be about 37 people in the room. That's all he gave me. Great, no big deal. So I went up. He said, when you get here, just come in the back of the room and I'll call you up when I'm finished with my beginning part. Great, no problem. So I walk in the back of the room. I got there a little early, I had my coffee. And I open the doors and I literally sneak in the back and I look and there's this big horseshoe of people all facing him. And every single one were middle-aged or older white men. And I thought, and you hired me. Okay, that's interesting. So I thought I have two choices in this, right? I can go, they already paid me, so just go do my thing and leave. Or maybe I could actually open up some conversation here. And so I chose that. And after my 90 minutes, I did this little exercise that I call the confidence resume, where really quickly we go around, they write down 10 things, 10 strengths. I give them about a minute. So as we did that, I said, all right, we're going to go around. You're just going to give me one really quickly. So I go around the loop and everyone's giving me one, and I get about halfway through and there's this guy, he's probably the youngest guy in the room. Paper's blank. And as I'm getting to him, I can see this ahead of me, right? And I'm thinking, oh, this guy's too cool for school, right? He's not gonna write anything down. Okay, fine. So I was like, all right, go ahead, just tell us what's one. And he looked up at me, and when we made eye contact, I saw the tears in his eyes. And he looked up and he said, you know what? I'm stuck. And I said, okay, we're gonna stop right here. I said, everyone in this room, you know him? They're like, yeah. Okay, go ahead, help him fill this out. So I had them just shouting things out to him. He's writing them down. It was an awesome day. When I got home that night, I was looking through the feedback forms and I found his. And his simply said, thank you, thank you, thank you. You helped me find strengths I didn't know I had. I'm going through a really tough divorce right now. And my wife doesn't think I'm any good at all. In that moment, I recognized how important this work is for men too. That this isn't just a thing that we can continue down this pathway and these stereotypes to think that this is where things are. We've got to change that because we're all in this space together. We're all hurting and we all need to feel like we belong.
Yeah. So what do you think is the most important thing that leaders can do right now to help their organizations and in turn their people move forward, recognizing this difficult time? So basically this time last year, logistically, organizations were figuring out how to get everybody to work from home and that whole transition. Now here we are trying to transition back in the next couple of months. And so you've got that coupled with all of the emotional, aspects of being a part. What do you think is there a most important thing? Can you just name one, or are there a series of things?
Be brave. Belonging, resilience, authenticity, vulnerability, and empathy. Maybe add one simple step to every one-on-one or every conversation or at the top of every meeting. And I've been using this and this works. Ask one simple question when you kick things off. How are you? And you're going to hear the typical, I'm good, I'm okay, I'm hanging in, blah, blah. It's nice out today, right? We do all of that. And then I want you to pause when they're finished with all the niceties and look dead in the camera into their eyes and say, and how are you doing really? And watch what happens. You'll see, oh, we're about to have a human moment. Well, here's what's going on. And it's amazing what happens when you give people the permission to show up. And here's the kicker though, leaders, you've got to initiate that. You have to be vulnerable enough and willing enough to share what's going on in your space, to show them what that looks like, and to show them that it is okay. We're all going through different levels of this. And so having those actual human connection moments, literally 60 seconds, changes the entire feeling and the entire sense of belonging, and the trust that you build. Everything going forward changes. And it's just one simple little thing.
Yeah. And it can make a big difference.
Huge.
Got to ask you about Philly. Is there anything specific about Philadelphia that would make any of this more difficult? You know, we get a bad rap,
Yep.
you know, especially when it comes to sports, but we get a bad rap when it comes to, you know, oh, they're rude, they're rough around the edges. As somebody that travels a lot, how does Philly compare to other communities when it comes to being compassionate and empathetic and inclusive and diverse?
So I think, again, it's this is the expectation thing, right? So we have these stereotypes and these expectations that this is how people think we show up. And I'll say we, even though I'm a transplant, but I live here now. So the question then remains, well, what are we doing about that? What are we doing in order to wipe out stereotypes like that? You know, I think, again, if each of us show up in this compassionate, empathetic way with each other, I've certainly met wonderful people in Philly. And I think, you know, you also have the rural versus urban thing, right? You know, there's automatic diversity when you're looking at city that may not exist in more rural areas. So there's that focus from a governmental standpoint in most urban areas, the office of the mayor, and, you know, you're seeing more diverse and inclusive constructs being built in those situations. So how can we push that out more into suburbs and more rural areas, even here, and show, you know, this is what this looks like, and these are the conversations we need to be having. So I think, as far as Philly goes, I think it has an advantage of having, you know, a city and some really great suburbs that surround it, that can have these conversations and lead the way on that.
You know, we've got a lot of people, a room full of business professionals and leaders that are listening to you speak. And a lot of people would say that, you know, workplace culture, it comes from the top. It starts at the top.
Yeah.
What can the individual, you know, worker do to get more buy-in from their leadership to encourage a more compassionate and inclusive approach, when, again, that leadership may not think, you know, this is maybe the top thing on the list, and maybe this is more of a back burner issue? How does, you know, the individual worker you know, get them to move forward on this?
Call me. I'm only half kidding, but here's what I'm saying. So I have this big global client. It's a global tech company, very results driven, right? Culture is multinational, very focused on numbers and results. And they know, when they brought me in, that the huge win is getting the buy-in from the top. And so in the conversations we've had, one thing is clear: focusing on results and numbers is great to make you one of the top tech companies in the world. But again, like I said before, at what cost? It's not sustainable when we're talking about people. And so it's now, like I alluded to before, that I think we really have an opportunity to make some massive change. Everything's different now. We've never been here before. And as the saying goes, what got you here won't get you there, right? So how do we move forward now in a new way to use this time to take advantage of creating a new way of working? And, you know, how can you take those ideas up and say, hey, you know what? Can we just open the door of possibility to look at everything that might be possible for us to move forward from this space? And I'm happy to help you figure that out, because that's a big conversation.
Yeah. as I said, you talk all over, you do this all over. Do you have any success stories that just jump out at you, where you're like, yes, that's it. That is what I'm talking about. Do you have any, any company, any individual that you say, that's the one, that proves everything that I'm saying?
I have a few, but I'll share kind of example of one in particular without naming anything. It was a company who was dealing with some racial, I guess, throughout this past year, obviously things start to bubble up, right? We've all watched this kind of happen and take shape. And I was working with an organization that decided that it was finally time to have this conversation. And the truth is, it had to come from the top, right? Because once they actually recognize it and see it and know it, it becomes a whole different thing. So like we were just talking about, you have to find your way up the chain to show why this is important. So they did that. And everybody was bought in. This is exactly what needs to happen. And as we started to build this culture and this, we put together a toolkit for managers to be able to use, basically around cultures of belonging. We've created conversations. We were doing fireside chats. I mean, we put all these different things in place. I had someone come up to me the last time I was there, and said, you know what, can I steal 5 minutes of your time? I said, sure, go ahead. So we talked, and he looked me in the eyes and he said, this is the one time in my entire life I have felt seen at work.
Wow.
And I'm recognizing what that means now, because when I show up to work, I want to be seen. I want to participate in making this the greatest place to work. And I'll tell you, in that moment, it made me really understand the pathway here. That we're talking about big, huge change. It's a process, it's a system. Once you actually start walking down the path actually shows itself to you. And I've watched it happen time and time again. And those are the moments. That's what I live for. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, man, it just oozes out of me. I'm so excited when I see change happen. And I get this like, yes, that's it. That this is what we were trying to do. And the moment I know people feel it, that's it. We know that we're on the right path.
That's awesome. Jen, I could talk to you forever, but I know Nicole is standing by. She's wanting to hop in here, and I know we've got a lot of questions. So Nicole, I'm going to turn it over to you. You've been kind of sifting through some of those. So what do we have?
Yes, thank you both so much. I'm going to get us into a gallery view here. Hopefully everyone can see all of us. So we have a few questions already, but if you haven't asked a question yet, please feel free to put that into the Q&A box now. I'll get us started. And if you'd like to raise your hand and speak, don't worry, your video won't be on. But if you want to ask Jen or Aaron a question out loud, please feel free to raise your hand and I'll get you in the chat box that way. So I have this first question from Rosemary Dempsey. What, in your opinion, is the answer to change our society from interacting with technology to interacting in person more often, especially younger people?
Great question. So what I'm seeing, and this is a tough time for figuring that out, right? Because right now it's like, it's the only way for us to interact is doing this. So it's kind of like we were all moving towards, hey, put technology away, right? And then it was like, wait, just kidding, take it back out. This is how we're going to live for a year. So I think it's finding a balance. I think it's being able to say, okay, right now, this is how we need to connect, and we need to find ways outside of that. We are fortunate here in the Northeast, at least, that, we're moving into spring. Things are going to start to get warmer. Take it outside. Go find a conversation, share a coffee in a park where you can sit, still be apart if you need to. That's wonderful. I think we need to build in more quick breaks also. Moments where, and I do this, I force myself to do this, or I could sit in my office all day, on Zoom calls and work. I force myself to literally go walk outside, stand on my deck and just look up and take a breath. Okay, I'm ready, right? It's these little moments that we need to be able to build in and reconnect. And that might be a little slow. I mean, people might be a little fearful of getting back together, even after vaccinated. I know you have this like mental feeling of, wait, are we good? Am I too close to you, or are we okay? And I think it's going to be a process, but it's a process we can have grace around and make it happen.
Great. Next question. I am in the position of leading our outreach and team building activities. How do you get even the shyest or most reserved team member to get on the bus, per se, in regards to culture setting, following expectations, etc.?
So I think asking questions is helpful. I think being able to share stories. What I'm seeing too that is working really, really well in different organizations is to be able to say, okay, you know what? Let's go through this process. Let's do some things. Maybe here's some learning, here's some activities, and then we want to hear your story. And the more people are able to kind of share stories, make it, you in a meeting, you're asking, let me hear a little bit. Tell me about give me 30 seconds on, where did you come from? Where are you from? What is your background? What was your favorite subject in school? Like just random stuff that we can actually become more connected in ways of just including people. Ask for their opinion on something, as in the middle of a meeting, something's happening, say, hey, you know what do you think about this? And give them an opportunity to just find their voice, but, do it in a safe way that they don't feel picked on or ostracized, obviously, but you can do that by just including. Think about, what that looks like when you're just kind of including people in the conversation.
Okay, as you said, leading and building a culture of belonging starts at the top. What is your best advice when you have a seat at the table, but your voice isn't being heard, or you don't feel that it's being heard or valued from the top?
Two thoughts on that. One, find someone in that same room with you who can help to kind of reverberate what you're saying. So in other words, if you have an opinion or a thought, find a champion in the room to say, hey, you know what? Let's go back to Becky's thought on that. I really liked what you're saying. Can you tell us more? So find people who can champion with you. And I think, when you're giving each other kind of the loudspeaker to be heard and to be listened to and to be seen in those rooms, that's what moves things forward. So I think, that's number one. Number two, I think, asking maybe for a moment from that person from the top to say, hey, you know what, can we talk about, I have this idea. Can I steal 5 minutes from you? And find a time to actually sit down and have them listen to you and say, here's what I'm thinking, or here's what I want to be able to share. Can you, give me the opportunity to do that?
And can you provide an example of empathy for self and for others?
Sure. So empathy is something that I think as a society we are confused about, right? So there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. And I always say I want to write to Hallmark and tell them they need to be empathy cards, not sympathy cards, right? So when you lose someone, let's all go here for a second. And I'll give my own example. I lost my mom in 2013. And I remember going through that process. People would come to me, hey, so sorry to hear. I'm here if you need anything, right? We've all said this, right? I'm here. Please reach out if I can do anything for you. Okay. So here's the problem with that. The problem with that is, I don't know about you all, but I'm not really great at asking for help. So I'm not going to be, and especially in the middle of grieving, I'm not going to be like, hey, help me. The second piece of that, so we don't want to put the onus on the other person. The second piece of that is, in that sympathetic moment, we kind of make it about ourselves. I'm here to fix it, right? Let me know how I can help you. And the third piece to that is, sympathy is about, hey, I'm so sorry, let's fix it. Empathy, here's the difference. Empathy is really difficult for us as human beings because We are human fixers. And so in a situation of empathy, I would say to my friend who I did this, her mom also had died. And I said, hey, look, I know there's no words, but I can sit in it with you for as long as it takes. And then be quiet. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm not trying to rush the grief. I'm not trying to change it. I can't change it. And I realized, because when she came back to me a couple weeks later and she said, you know what, I just want to say thank you. Those words to me had more impact than all of the casseroles and the, all of that. That didn't mean anything. Of course, that was nice. But the point is, I didn't need people to do anything. You can't change it. You can't fix it. But just to know that you're there, just for you to say, I will sit in it with you for as long as it takes, period. Sometimes it's just showing up. We don't have to say things to fix it. We're not going to make it better. But if we can show up in that way, that's real empathy. And so sitting in that space and not being afraid to sit in that space, that's the kicker, right? Because that doesn't always feel comfortable. And it's not always comfortable to go there with someone else. But when we can practice doing that, I think that reconnects us in such a deeper way.
Awesome, Erin, I'm going to put you on the spot. And I'm going to ask you a question, because you are in the media and you are, putting out stories daily. And I feel like sometimes the news, is all bad or all good. Or how does the media balance the compassion and highlighting these stories? How do you think the media plays a part in this, or do they play a part in this? Are they allowed to without seeming biased?
Yeah, objectivity is number one for us. I mean, that's 101. That's what we're told. You have to be objective. But somebody early in my career told me, you can't bring it home with you. I've got 2 little kids at home. It will destroy your mental health. And so it's tough to walk that line. And I remember for me, over the summer during all of the protests and stuff, that was the first time for me. I haven't spoken about this a lot, but that was the first time for me where I felt okay to be able to actually share some of my personal experience. First time ever I have done that on television, and it was new. It was a little, I was a little nervous about it, but it's a good question. It's a hard question, but I think there's a definite balance and there's a definite line. We've got to play the facts. We've got to, talk about the facts, but also we have to bring our compassion. And I think that that is something that we try to do every day, because we have some difficult news. And we have a lot of people that say, yeah, the news is just so depressing. It's so hard. I can't watch it. And that's not what we want. We want to inform. At the same time, we do want to be compassionate in how we deliver it as well.
Well, thank you both so much. We have only a minute left and I don't have any more questions. Jen, did you have any final closing thoughts for us?
I don't. The one thing I will say is thank you. My sincere gratitude for you all, really, for showing up today, because I know, schedules are busy, things are crazy. You have 5 plates spinning, 1 on the floor. I get it. And I just want to recognize the fact that you took the time today for you to be here with us and to show up, to really show up. And if I can do anything, and I mean that sincerely, whether it's a conversation or a laugh or a cry or a, suggestion or whatever I can do to help, please reach out to me. And I do mean that. Feel free to have that conversation with me. I'm happy to help in any way that I can.